Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, dear members of the media. Great pleasure to welcome you all here at this now traditional press conference of FIBA Secretary General Andreas Zagklis. Welcome, Andreas, and I should say also actually happy anniversary because it's exactly 5 years that you have been appointed as Secretary General of FIBA. So a nice date actually to hold this press conference. 2023 was a very exciting and intense year for FIBA and for basketball, obviously. So a lot to be discussed also with 2024 Olympic year coming ahead. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. We will start this press conference as usual with some opening remarks from Andreas. But before, let me give you a couple of always important to make sure that technology follow us and allow us to have a smooth press conference. So you should be able to only listen in for the moment. If you have questions, please coordinate with the comms team, but then you can raise your hand and use the Q&A if you need to. When you are given the floor and when you know it's going to be your time to ask a question, it's really important to join as panelists. You will be asked, we will be promoting you. And then, of course, activate your camera and unmute your microphone. Of course, we will try to accommodate everyone for this press conference, but please, if we are not able to, we already apologize depending on the time. One last one, important one. I know you have a lot of you have questions for the Secretary General, so please, one question only per media, so we give an opportunity for everyone to ask his question. That's it from my side. Andreas, the floor is yours for your opening comments.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello to everyone, and many thanks for being with us today. End of the year, end of a year that saw FIBA and our sport growing at a rhythm that can make us all happy. I believe the year of our flagship event, the World Cup, a World Cup that showed the growth on the court with fantastic performances, high scoring, high level performances from the top players in the world. We were even discussing, I remember around the press conference in Manila, which of the top four of China would have made it in the top four of Manila, and we all realized how difficult it would have been. Also off the court, very successful. We were not, I have to be honest, expecting that we would have surpassed the numbers of China 2019 already at the end of the group phase, and we set higher KPIs for the future. I think only the number of 4.6 billion views speaks for itself. It was a big year also for our women's game with the 4 continentals that gave us the teams that will play the OQTs in February on the road to Paris, and of course a year where the road to Paris also started for a number of teams that did not play in the World Cup of Men with the pre-OQTs that spread around the world the qualifying process in a way that involved more than 70 teams around the world. A year where we also made strides in our, let's say, new baby, the new Olympic discipline of FIBA. 3x3 had its biggest year ever in terms of number of events. The year that saw already 3 teams qualified to Paris for men and women, and also saw how 3x3 reaches new audiences, grows the sport. And I really invite those of you who follow the traditional side of our sport to really engage. Just to give you a number, only this year we had more than 1 billion views on the FIBA 3x3 dedicated channels. And I do believe that we have already arrived at a point where 3x3 alone is bigger in social media than more than 2/3 of international federations in the Olympic movement. So we manage that quite well so far, and I think in Paris, in Place de la Concorde, 3x3 will reach new levels. Our latest endeavor and initiative, of course, the FIBA, our esports side. We played 2 weeks ago in Sweden, the first live event where all the players had access to the same network. I must say, beyond expectations, the reach and the success, and we're very happy with the partnership with the NBA and 2K League, and this will continue. Next year, as we attracted some of the best 2K players in the world. A summer, at least for the Northern Hemisphere, or for the Southern Hemisphere, a winter that passed with a couple of landmarks for FIBA, the use of a new floor in an official competition, with a glass floor making its debut in the under-19 women in Madrid, and seeing that this initiative is now being followed by other competitions within our family, and I'm really glad that this will have its own future, and that FIBA put the first step in a long road. Also, a start of a new 4-year mandate. We had our FIBA Congress. More than 165 countries participated, a new strategy, a new chair, a new president of FIBA. It's the 4 years of presidency of Asia in FIBA that started. And I had the honor to welcome Sheikh Saud Ali Al Thani as our president for the next 4 years, and a new central board with new leaderships in the zones. And FIBA continues ahead in a very united manner. Also, a new strategy that came out of the Congress, with club competitions now being in the front line of what we do more and more, trying to shape the global environment into a more sustainable and more successful, above all, for our clubs and our leagues environment. So very excited to finish a year full of many historical moments, if I may say so, and open a new page, our Olympic year, with 4 OQTs for women in February. We go from Xi'an to Sopron to Antwerp to Belém, where we will see fantastic games. I think very open groups, all 4 of them, and some of them with really highlights. European champions versus world champions in Antwerp, where the sales of the tickets for a 15,000-seater are already on a good way. And then come the OQTs for 3x3 in April, May. We know we will be in Japan and in Hungary for OQT 2 and 3, and we are finalizing now the hosting for OQT 1 that we expect to announce by the end of the year, followed by the 4 OQTs for men's basketball in San Juan, in Valencia, in Piraeus, and in Riga. So all of these exciting moments until we land in France, go to Lille, and then, of course, do the best and provide fantastic experience of 3x3 and basketball in Place de la Concorde and in Palais de Bercy. So a year that we're looking forward to start with a lot of energy, and also with a solid basis for FIBA, having been a federation that managed during the 4 years of the previous term, including the pandemic, to close its books on a break even, which is, as you can imagine, a rare occurrence in our Olympic movement. But this gives us an impetus for the next 4 years. So happy to be with you today, and ready to discuss the topics you would like to raise and answer the questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andreas. So we'll start straight away going to Serbia with Nikola Stojkovic from Mozart. So please, Nikola, if you can actually join as panelists and then open your camera and unmute so we can listen to your question. Hello, Nicola. I can see you appearing on the screen. If you can unmute and open your camera. Perfect.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everyone. Nikola Stojkovic from Motorsport from Belgrade here. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to ask the first question to Mr. Zagklis. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on the anniversary of your election as a Secretary General. So, Mr. Zagklis, my question is, since we are all aware that issue of the relationship between FIBA and the EuroLeague is of great importance for the further growth of European basketball. We know that there's the agreement has been reached for the February qualification windows, but how the talks with the leaders of the EuroLeague are progressing, and can we expect any further agreements in the future? And of course, is the annual competition calendar in the, how can I say it, in improving phase, since we all know that the calendar is very tight during the year. Thank you.
Thank you for the question and the wishes. And I told my team we discovered the anniversary, I think, 20 minutes before starting the call. Nobody would believe that we didn't do it on purpose, but thank you. I start from something you said, that it is important for the growth. For me, unity in our European basketball family is not important. It is the only way for growth of European basketball, and this is why we're trying so hard. And this is why we have tried on our side and side of federations and the leagues to create more unity and more consensus, so that when we arrive at the table of discussion with our colleagues from ECA, we can faster and more easily arrive to conclusions. You remember we started 2.5 years ago, the initiative. We also brought the NBA to the table at the beginning. And then, of course, this process was hampered by a number of factors. COVID was one of them, but certainly also the internal changes in ECA played an important role. We have been trying on our side to be very constructive, providing proposals. For what we achieved last summer, we achieved it thanks to a respectful atmosphere, on a premise that we don't try to tell you how to do your job, and you don't try to tell us how to do our job, but there are synergies there which can help everyone grow. I think that is the basic premise. We have indeed delivered on the things that we agreed last summer. We made some improvements, small, but improvements that were asked by ECA on the insurance. We had, of course, previously improved already the system based on feedback of ULEB and our clubs. We did take the step for the November window this year. We know it is the difficult calendar year between World Cup and Olympics and OQTs, if I may. We have had our own internal not only consultation but democratic process. We have a new leadership in Europe, and despite the change, we continue united in one voice. I think we need to be responsible not only to our members but also to our fans who are asking what you're saying, are asking this unity. That's why we need to provide some transparency also. We said we will not negotiate publicly, but at the same time, I need to tell you, we have met already twice since the World Cup. We were supposed to meet a third time, but due to a force majeure, we could not meet, but we will meet in the next 3-4 weeks again. And I am accompanied in this process by our president and executive director in Europe, Mr. Novak, and the CEO of BCL. So we have had our meetings, our FIBA Europe board and our FIBA executive. We have a clear mandate and empowerment. At the same time, we also need to be respectful and recognize that the situation is not the same inside the EuroLeague. They've had changes also last summer. There is a new CEO on a specific term. The relationship is going well. I have to also be transparent in that respect. It's also someone from, if you allow me, my generation. So the code of communication is good. I hope that they can have, both he and the president, longer mandate so that we can have also ourselves better visibility on where the EuroLeague is going in the future years. Because otherwise we will be trapped in short-term thinking. And as you said, we have provided calendars, we've done a lot of work. The two teams have exchanged a lot, which I find positive. But then we need to see now also the owners of the clubs empowering the leadership for this deal, so that we can think long term. Because when we sit down, I will not go into the details because that's a commitment we've made to each other, but we are looking at calendars many years ahead. In order, however, to think whether it's one window, it's 1.5 window, it's 2 windows, we will find, I believe, the solutions. And the problems are smaller. The problems between us are smaller than they seem. The systemic, of course, challenges are bigger. We have to see the production of talent. We have to see the new markets that are opening in Europe or should open in Europe. We have to see other elements in that. But I think the simple steps that we need to take to unite the family are there. And I would say that FIBA has done and will continue to do its part. And I think your last piece of the question was, are we optimistic? We have committed to each other to continue negotiating throughout this club season, and we will continue doing that. And I do believe that February and a fantastic window with everyone play for their countries and also promoting each other will be an experience that will bring us closer together. So that is my comment on the status of the relationship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas, for your question. We can now move to France with Yann Onona from L'Equipe. That should also upgrade us panelists and unmute.
Okay.
Hello, Yann.
Seems like it's working. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My question takes us back to last summer, Mr. Zagklis, where Mr. Ceuta lost the election of FIBA Europe. And my question is about the influence of France in FIBA, because it seems like France has pulled off any people from France from FIBA Europe commissions. So I wanted to have your thoughts about that, and maybe do you have any concern in the decrease of influence of France when we know that we're 7 months away from a huge Olympic event in Paris? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would start first with the institutional side, because I don't think it is very appropriate that I comment on individuals. On the institutional side, because you mentioned the Olympics, FIBA has a close collaboration with the organizing committee. I met President Estanguet in Mumbai during the IOC session, and we will meet again in January. On the level of the Olympic Committee, we have, as you know, also thanks to the traditional FIBA-UCI relationship, good collaboration and relationship with David Lapartien, the president of the Olympic Committee. And I also had the pleasure to receive, I think 2 weeks ago, in the office, the new president of the French League. So I think the multiple touching points that I just mentioned are excellent examples of how France continues to play a role and have influence, if this is the appropriate word, influence on how we do. I would also like to say that the French League is represented inside the BCL, is a shareholder of the BCL, and it's represented in the commissions. And I think until now, Mr. Beral has been a member of the board and chairing the club council. So on the federative side, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we also had our internal democratic procedures, and some of them were contested, some of them were not contested by multiple candidates. It is true that the federation took a decision to withdraw its candidate from the board after the result on the presidential election. There was a tie for the last position on the board between Switzerland and France decided to withdraw that person. It's the Secretary General of the Federation was the candidate. And it's also true that after that, the candidates from the commissions of Europe were withdrawn, and also that we didn't receive candidatures for the FIBA world level commissions. But I can tell you the referees are there. They were in the World Cup. The commissioners have been there. The officials are unaffected. We have, on an operational level, very good collaboration. The teams were in the World Cup. So besides the political aspect that you mentioned and the participation aspect, which I have to say, we have to go back into the books and see if in the last 90 years this has happened before, because France became a member of FIBA, if I'm not mistaken, 90 years ago. If this has happened ever before, not to have them in any of the bodies, but that is certainly not our decision, and I'm sure we will find a way during the next 4 years to have more representation of France in the house. So a big federation that is certainly well represented on the court, and as I mentioned, on multiple levels of the court.
Thank you, Jan, for your question. We move now to Greece. Aris Barkas should join us from Eurohoops to ask his next question. I see him appearing on the screen. Hello, Aris. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope my connection is good enough and you can hear me. So, Mr. Zagklis, first of all, congratulations on the anniversary of your election. And also, I would like to ask you, because we're expecting also a very big Olympic tournament, how do you consider the tournament and also the long-time petition of FIBA to have more teams in the Olympics? Because right now, we know that either Giannis or Luka Doncic will miss the Olympics. Do you feel that the qualifiers are practically an extension of the tournament? Do you feel that there is room for more teams in Olympic basketball tournament, or do you think that the compromise is the 3x3?
Thank you. I think FIBA tried quite a few times in the past to have the 12 become 16. Historically, we were more than 12, but we went down in order to have women in Montreal 76. You probably remember FIBA started World Cup men 1950, women 1953, but in the Olympics the gap is not 3 years, it's 40 years. Berlin 36 men, Montreal 76, when Boris Vlastakovic took over, and the agreement came that we reduced the men to have the women in, which was fundamental, and if you ask my opinion, one of the reasons why our women's side did not run as fast as the men's side. Now, fast forward to today, the Olympics are operating under, let's call it a general cap of 10,500, plus the sports that are proposed by the Olympic organizing committee. It has been tremendous success of my predecessor to have 3x3 basketball in the Olympics. We are not happy with only 8 in 3x3, and we're very happy to be in, but with 8, we don't have universality. We cannot have all the continents represented, which is important for us. And therefore, we have, of course, raised the topic of increasing the 3x3 teams. This is not a compromise for us. This is a priority. On the basketball side, it has been made clear, and I think also the recent announcements for Los Angeles are that the number of quotas will not increase for any sport. So we should not expect the 12 to become more in the near future, I would say, in Los Angeles or Brisbane. Now, yes, the OQTs are, for us together with the Olympics, the main product of basketball for men next summer, and for women February and July. But the proximity of the two is such that there is no doubt that the 4 OQTs of 6 teams each, these are, in terms of quality, mini World Cups. And I'm really excited about the level of talent we will have in Paris, and I can tell you, in Lille and then Paris, I can tell you that I also see the teams from the other continents very motivated to come well prepared, meaning outside Europe, that you asked the question in terms of relevance for Giannis and Luka. So we will have a great OQT in Piraeus, the 2 of them, and a few others, because Dominicana is there, Egypt is there, New Zealand is there, and Croatia is there. So I can only say this will be 4 weeks of fantastic FIBA basketball.
Yep.
Thank you, Aris. We move to another continent. We go to Asia and China, in particular, with Shanlei from Xinhua News Agency. Good afternoon, Shanlei. If you can unmute and open your camera. Perfect. We can see you. Let's just unmute, and then we will be able to hear you, so you can ask your question. And somebody's spying on you behind.
Okay. Finally, you hear me, right?
Yes.
Aris from Eurohopes just asked my question. Well, it seems we have the same concern about the number of the Olympic teams. So I just ask a follow-up question. For the 3-on-3 basketball at the Paris 2024, there are 8 teams for each per gender, and the host of France only have 1 automatic berth. Is that also because of the less number of the participating teams into a 3-on-3 basketball?
Yes, it's clearly the main factor why France cannot have both, or the host, same was for Japan, and cannot have both automatically qualified, because the rule was the highest ranked, and that was the women of France were qualified, and now the men will have, if I'm not mistaken, 2 chances through 2 different OQTs to play for a spot at home. So definitely, if we go to 12, we would still have, I think, what we have for men's and women's basketball, a decision of the central board to confirm, which traditionally has been a decision confirming the host countries. It was the case for Japan, it was the case for France now, it was the case for GB, but you remember before London, we had to do quite some homework to unite the home nations federations into one, the British Basketball Federation. So I do connect indeed the increase of quota potentially, if it comes one day, knowing that right now the IOC is not thinking of increasing anybody. It's rather in thinking of decreasing some of the sports, knowing that in Los Angeles, 4 out of 5 sports proposed by the organizing committee are team sports. So the total quota will be very, very high. And we think basketball here, and I would like to make this comment also in relation to the previous question, we think basketball, we think our tournaments, but the Olympics is a multi-sport event of a totally different magnitude. So we should not think as if World Cup went from 24 to 32, so we can do this, and with a magic wand, we can take the teams from 12 to 16 or from 8 to 12. And to give you one small example, we play the OQTs, and we are very late through a special agreement, which I should thank the IOC, that we can play so late in order to allow some space for our leagues to finish their seasons, both our NBA, but also our domestic leagues in the rest of the world. So this agreement is very difficult every time for IOC and OCOG, because if a delegation, let's say a delegation of Slovenia that was mentioned earlier, learns on the 7th of July, less than 2-3 weeks before that, they have 12 extra players and whatever the entourage that comes with them, this changes totally the logistics in the village or wherever they will stay and the transportation. This is a domino effect. So we should a little bit think as part of the Olympic family, and rest assured, we are pushing and lobbying and negotiating, especially for 3x3 that we know through its smaller quota is more achievable sometime in the future. I'm not saying it will be achieved, but it is for now the priority that the Central Board of FIBA has set.
Thank you for your question, Ali, and we can move to the US, where we will have Tim Reynolds from Associated Press joining us. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Pat. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, good afternoon. Congratulations on 5 years. Here's to at least 5 more, and then some. Question is also related, of course, to Paris. For Tokyo, the draw, I believe, was February 2nd. Should we anticipate a similar time frame for this year's draw? And also, has there been any communique from the IOC to FIBA? If I recall correctly, I may be wrong. If I recall correctly, there was a request to keep the U.S., separate the U.S. and Japan in group play for Tokyo 2021. Do we anticipate a similar request with the U.S. and France for 2024? Thank you.
Thank you. We will, our planning, we don't have a date for the draw, but our planning is to have draw for men and women together. And that means we need to wait for the OQTs of women to finish in February. Therefore, the draw will not be before March. We are looking at locations and dates right now. I think we will be ready to confirm in the first half of January, so with a couple of months of anticipation. And as usual, we will also announce the draw principles, as we call them, the restrictions. I don't have an answer to the second part either. Sorry to be a little bit vague on this, on whether we will be splitting any teams or imposing other restrictions. I do know we will have one draw like last time in March or April to know the groups. This is also helping the ticket sales, as you can imagine, and especially that we need to fill up 27,000 seater in Lille. And we will have another draw in Lille late night at the end of the group phase, like we had for the quarterfinals, as we had in Tokyo. So these are the 2 draws for both tournaments relevant, and this will give us the guidance for the next steps in the competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for waking up early in the US. And we go back to Europe now, to Lithuania with basket news, and we have Andreas Zagklis, who is already here. Good afternoon, Andreas.
Hey everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. And Mr. Zagklis, I have a question about the World Cups. For the 3rd time in a row, the FIBA World Cup will take place in Asia. And looking historically, it will be the first time since the 1950s that this competition is organized in the same continent for at least 3 times in a row. So what is FIBA's reasoning and idea for organizing the World Cup specifically in Asia for 3rd time in a row now? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the historical analogy. You know, I like this very much. I must say, America, similar to Asia, are so big that I think your 50s analogy makes sense partly because it was 3 in a row in South America. And I think it would make full sense if we would go 3 times in a row in East Asia. But we're not. Like it would not be the same if in the 50s we were 2 times in South and once in the US or Canada. The central board had opened a process that was inspired by the IOC process, being slightly more flexible, giving 3 potential central board meetings to countries that wanted to bid. There was no secret that, of course, we were looking at either west part of Asia or Europe or Americas, or something new from Africa if Africa would be ready. Perhaps not this time, and we discussed this, but we are having bigger and bigger arenas now in Africa and bigger organizational capacity. So Qatar came with a bid that was complying with what the central board had set as requirements. They came. We had others interested that also asked not to be publicly on record because they didn't arrive at the end on the finish line to raise their hand and say we're here for it. So I find the market analogy in commercial terms not successful. I think it is a different market. I think it is the first time in the Arabic world for us. It is the first time in the west part of Asia. Yes, in terms of FIBA continental split, it is the same continent, but we are very comfortable to apply, and that I think is the big difference. It is again in Asia, but in a very different model. Instead of the 8 cities in China with a lot of transfers, instead of the 3 countries with the new multi-country model, now comes the model of 32 teams in the same place. You know, so whenever your team qualifies, you just book your ticket to Doha in your hotel, and then you're waiting for the draw to see which game ticket you will buy. But therefore, I think that was the important aspect in selecting this candidature, and also the fact that the venues are there, and we know what we are going for. In China, there was 1 or 2 venues for Shan. I remember being built in Okinawa in 23. Also, Okinawa was being built, and Indonesia was finished 2 months before the event, 3 months approximately. So a different proposition overall, a different, partly at least, defined market. So I think I'm explaining to you the 3-4 elements that played the biggest role in the decision of the central board.
Thank you for your question, Andreas. We actually go back to East Asia with the Philippines. We have Ivan Saldayeno from Dugout that should join us to ask you a question.
Should I also say, finishing up the previous answer, that the rest of our world competitions are quite spread out, in the sense that you saw the OQTs, for example, in the women, Asia, Europe, Americas, in the men, Europe and Americas. So I think the fact that we have a quite good spread also of the continentals women, we played in Oceania, World Cup women in Oceania, World Cup women we will play in Europe. So the spread is there overall in our portfolio. I would not only segment it to our World Cup men.
Thank you for this precision, Andreas. So Ivan, you are already here. You can now unmute yourself and yeah.
Thank you so much, Sir Pat. So good evening, Sir Andreas from the Philippines. I apologize. I'm at another event, another coverage. So my question is, if I can recall, during your press conference last August here in Pasay, you mentioned that you had a meeting with our domestic league, the PBA, about how to improve their league. And before their season started, the board said that their goal is to become the best in Asia again after 4 years. So what are the specifics of your meeting with the PBA, and what do you have in store more for the Philippines now that the World Cup hosting is done?
Thank you for the question. First of all, we continue being grateful to the country for the way we were received and for the delivery of an unforgettable World Cup in which SBP, its leader, Mr. Pangilinan, and Emeritus Chairman and the President, Mr. Panlilio, were crucial. But I cannot forget the role that the PBA had as well, Chairman Vargas, in preparing the stage for us, not only in the promotion, but also in adjusting their calendars for the preparation of the national team, both before and after the World Cup. We met, indeed. We had met a couple of times before because I was visiting more often Manila, as you can imagine. And I think the last years leading to the World Cup have given the opportunity to the PBA to really look at the international practices of delivering top-level events. We have the venues, we have the passion, and we have the crowds. I think only last night I received a photo this morning, actually, which I think it is quite important to tell you. We had last night 25,000 people in a UAAP game, and the logo of the World Cup is still on the jumbotron of the Araneta Coliseum, if I'm not mistaken. It's clear that we are closer than ever to SPP and PBA, and I think also PBA saw what FIBA can deliver, and we have had also discussions for the launch or the relaunch of our traditional competition, the FIBA Asia Champions Cup, that it's being played already more than 25 editions. Will be coming back next year, and it will be renamed into BCL Asia. So Philippines is part of our global club strategy and league strategy, and it is, together with the B League in Japan and the KBL that we visited, both of them over the last year, important pillars of our strategy. And of course, the CBA is also part of that. And you know that on the West, with the West Asia Super League, and in the Southeast, as a legacy of the World Cup, with our endeavors there, our shaping of the international club competition system is taking every year more importance and clarity. I think it's good also for the PBA that there is more communication with the other leagues in terms of players from Asia coming to play in Philippines, as well as Filipinos going to play in other leagues. They come back better and they improve the level of the PBA. So I'm really optimistic, and we do have ahead of us quite a few things further to discuss.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Salamat.
Thank you, Ivan. We move now to Russia with Arina Ershova from Championat, who is joining us for the next question.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mr. Zagklis. I wanted to say thank you for such an opportunity to participate and ask you a question. And
we cannot hear you now.
Oh.
Now, yes.
Okay, all good?
Yes.
Right. So I have a question regarding Russian national team. Of course, I wanted to ask if there is any chance that at least Russian junior athletes, like under 18s, under 16s, and so on, will be able to play internationally and compete internationally on the FIBA anytime soon. Could it be possible to maybe lift the existing restrictions for the youth, for the junior players?
Thank you. First, I start with our general position that, as you know, follows the IOC recommendations, and recently our executive committee extended the status of the teams until the next central board and the European board equally for the summer youth events. And I also need to acknowledge that there is frequent and good discussions with the president of the RBF, Mr. Kirilenko, who is also a member of our board. There are two elements here. First, as you see, the question of neutral athletes that has been worked a lot by a number of federations is not helpful to us as a team sport. And we now know that there will be soon a decision by the IOC, requested also by a number of international federations, on participation of athletes with a Russian or Belarusian passport in the Paris Olympics. Several of them have been participating in individual sports as AIN, as is now the acronym, individual neutral athletes. But there is no neutral national team by definition. And this poses for us as a sport the biggest difficulty in trying to find a solution primarily for the young athletes. And in our discussions with the RBF, this is the primary concern, because I know the federation is opening a number of youth development centers around the country, is continuing to develop. The players from us are free to go individually and play at the club level. Shved is playing in China, for example. And it is true that as much as we have voices requesting a total exclusion, as much as we have voices that, or more, that say why an individual tennis player can, be in the final of the Australian Open, for example, and win $1 million prize money, but Vadeva cannot play for Russia. Indeed, therefore, our concern is the youth, the young national teams. We followed closely also the attempts in football recently, and I do believe that once, and I don't know when, but once we have the opportunity in a way that respects the principles of the FIBA statutes and the values that we represent, to have some type of participation, the starting point should be, in my personal opinion, now speaking as Andreas, it should be the youth teams, because we know what it means not to play internationally for high-level junior players.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arina. We move now back actually to Lithuania. We have Marius Milazis from 15 Minutes That's Lithuania, who should be joining us for the next question. Good afternoon, Marius. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can hear. We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Yes.
And now we can see you. Perfect.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for the opportunity. I want to ask you a question about the naturalization process. In this year's FIBA World Cup, a third of teams naturalized player in the roster, and in some cases, with the player who has nothing to do with the country he's representing, he's given the passport just before the tournament. So my question is this: is FIBA satisfied with the current rules, and is there any thoughts about having some changes and maybe making similar to FIBA international eligibility rules, which requires a player to have some connection, a clear connection to the country, which is being in the country for 2 years or having some grandparent or parent or something in his family tree. Thank you.
Thank you. The question whether we are satisfied, I think the rule has worked and has provided a very difficult balance between what is the objective, and the objective has been to try as much to have a national team that represents the basketball in the country. But that is coming against the principle of passport. And these two are extremely difficult to reconcile. And I think I've said before some of the particularities of our sports. And one of the particularities that we have 2-3 countries, especially the US, that produce thousands of players every year. Their national team can only have 12. But even the player number, perhaps 50 or 60 or 100 or 500, can make a difference at the given national team level. I can tell you this is the rules we have worked the hardest on inside FIBA. And the rules, although we focus on the one player that is a naturalized player in your question, the rules for the other 11 are so strict that we have a number of federations asking us to make them less strict. And the reason we're not making them less strict, and it's connected to why the naturalized player alone is a passport rule, is a clear passport rule. You have the passport. If you obtained it after the age of 16, then unless other links exist, and that's where the links that you mentioned play a role. So these links are part of our regulations. Then you can pass into the normal list, not in the naturalized. We also need to account for something else, that the country that produces all these high-level players through its college and high school system, that is the US, has a special rule that you obtain the passport if you're born there. So changing the rules into something similar to football or something similar to what other sports have, rugby or handball or volleyball that we've studied comparatively, would change overnight, and I can tell you, overnight, the global map of basketball. And that is why we were not, it's not our plan to make any type of such change. Now, are we happy that more countries than before are using this naturalized player spot? One can be happy, can be unhappy. It is a fact, it is a rule. Those who want to use it, use it. It's not new. This rule has existed for decades, and we have seen countries giving the passport just a few weeks before the tournament in basketball for 50, 60 years. I can remember examples of those players. So for us, what is important is to maintain and to explain to our federations, not that rule. That rule is the easy part. The other rule is the difficult part, which is you discover a player in a college at the age of 18, and he will never play for a USA team, but he has a father and a mother with a passport of your country, and we declare that player naturalized. And that is what our federations have problems to understand, and that is where we say we want to be strict. So in as much as this naturalized player rule seems flexible and could, perhaps more people say, in the women's game make a difference than in the men's game, but it can make a difference 1 out of 12. On the rest 11, we are very strict and much stricter than many other sports. I think the majority of the other team sports. So that is the balance that I think it's my duty to explain, that one, which looks flexible or perhaps too flexible, as you implied in your question, is balanced by the other, which looks too strict.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We change continent again. We go to Canada. We have Dana McKeel from CTV News Channel next on the line for his question. Dana, if you can upgrade yourself and unmute as usual and open your camera so we can see you. I can see you.
Hope you can see me.
Now.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Okay.
Maybe you have closed your camera on the screen upstairs, but if it doesn't work, you can still ask your question. At least we can hear
It
you.
looks like I'm having technical problems, but I still follow through with the question. Given the talent situation, the amount of talent that's coming to the Olympic Games in Paris, and the current political situation in Ukraine and the Middle East, what are the security arrangements going to be like for the Paris Olympic Games? And has it been, is it going to be amped up as opposed to what it was in the past?
If I understood well, because there was a lot of echo, you referred to security arrangements in Paris in view of geopolitical tensions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. This is not managed by FIBA, of course, and I have to be very transparent with you. Next week, my team has an operational detailed debrief with Paris, and that is on the agenda. I think what is relevant for us is that we will have 24 teams, either all the time in Lille or back and forth Paris-Lille for almost 10 days. And that is the particularity that we would like to look at when it comes to bus or train transportation for those who decide to do back and forth, or in terms of the lodging in Lille, because as you know, in Lille, there will be a so-called village special for basketball, and then for handball that will come for its final phase in Lille. So security is the responsibility of the local organizing committee, of the Olympic Games, and both the IOC and FIBA are receiving briefings in that respect. So I think it is more appropriate to ask the organizing committee the details on that, also in view of the fact that we have to be honest, things are changing constantly. You asked about the recent tensions that happened 2 months this day, I think, 7 October, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it is important also to give the necessary time to the French authorities to revamp their plans and bring them to our attention, so then we can provide a response. But there is no doubt that for us, safety and health of the players is a primary concern. So we have been putting these questions to the organizing committee, in as much as we have focused, very much on the conditions in the venue in particular.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. And we're back in one of the hosting countries of the World Cup, Japan, with Aoki Takashi from Japan. Good evening. Can you hear us? Please unmute and also open your camera. Perfect.
Hello.
Hello, konnichiwa.
こんにちは。こんばんは。Thank you for taking my question. I'd like to understand basic about the FIBA insurance. If a player playing for national team is seriously injured in a close scrimmage before the World Cup or any FIBA events, will the insurance cover the surgery, treatment costs, and guaranteed salary for the player's team?
Yes, the answer to your question is the following. The FIBA insurance program, which applies for men, women, junior, 3x3, wheelchair, and it's one of the most advanced insurance programs in the sports industry, at least among federations. Provides for a period before the big events of 28 days. So if the player is injured in a scrimmage 20 days or 15 days or 1 day or 28 days before the start of the World Cup, for example, yes, the insurance, the FIBA insurance covers a number of medical expenses and also the salary. There is, of course, like in all insurances, there is the small letter, but this we have tried to improve across the years, and we have one of the best deductibles. I think we have the best deductible in the market right now, and I can tell you the insurance program is one of the biggest, I don't want to say the biggest, but one of the biggest investments of FIBA into the player, of course, welfare, as well as into the club protection. And this is something that we have been improving constantly. And last week we had our insurance debriefing with our insurance company, and I can tell you that FIBA has been dispersing, when there was an injury, the amounts of the salaries in agreement always with the players, the clubs, and the national federations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We go now to Italy. Pietro Garini from Tutto Sport is the next one to join the call. There you go. You are appearing on the screen. Pietro, if you can unmute
I should have mentioned in the previous question that FIBA also pays including for the Olympics and the pre-Olympics. This is very important.
We can hear you. Yeah, you can hear. We can go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, here is Piero Guerini from Tutto Sport, daily sport newspaper in Turin. Nice to meet you again. I would like to know something about, I'm curious about the NBA rules of participation with players and the load management. If there is something that you can do in international basketball similar, if this could be an inspiration.
You mentioned the rules of the NBA, but I didn't understand on which topic.
The player participation rules in the NBA.
Okay.
Fight the load management.
The minimum participation rules that were introduced this year. I think I'm not subscribing to the load management theories or philosophy. I must say there is our medical commission has said evidence on both sides in terms of load management of a player during a club season and a league season. But since it is not, this is more, when it comes to clubs, more a question for Mr. Komninos, not for me, I would tell you in terms of our international calendar, how we have taken into account the load on the players. So when we approved 10 years ago, approximately, the new FIBA calendar, it was clear request also from the players that a big tournament every summer in the 4 years was too much.
Yeah.
So de facto, the players were applying that policy because few of them were coming to all four. And it was clear to us that if we wanted to protect our continentals going forward, we needed one continental, one World Cup, and the Olympics as the showcase of our sport. So that is why the overall number of games was reduced. One big tournament was eliminated to a cost for us, as you can imagine. So it was a sacrifice on behalf of FIBA in this respect. And that's where the small windows came back after, I think, 15 years. And this is the idea of trying to manage better with the clubs the load. Now, at the same time, we have seen that our clubs have, especially in Europe, increased exponentially the number of games they're playing. And then this is a business discussion as well. Have the players' salaries increased as much? I think when we were designing and when we announced the FIBA calendar 2017 plus, if I'm not mistaken, EuroLeague from regular season game 1 to Final Four, it was, I think, 26, 27 games. Now it is 41. If you play 34 plus best of 5 plus Final Four. So this is what changed definitely the FIBA players' participation on Europe in terms of load. Now, one more, I think, and that I think it's news because I'm not sure we have announced it, and if we haven't, it's okay, we can. In Eurobasket 25, after requests from the players, FIBA makes an investment, and we will play only one back-to-back, not two back-to-backs in the group phase, which was one of the requests from the players. And that we saw also, some of them did not play all 5 games in the group in order to protect themselves. So we, although we had assigned the hosts, our European board, and that was one of the first decisions of the new leadership, which we have all supported, we said we will extend by 1 day in order to avoid the second back-to-back. And that came on a quite high cost on FIBA, I can tell you. And the ambition is in 29 not to have any back-to-backs. The same way, World Cup has no back-to-backs, and the Olympics also. And we have it in the OQT. I personally don't like it. I see the programs, the schedule now for OQTs, and I don't like it. And this is part of the discussion we're having with the leagues, including EuroLeague. We say, if you squeeze us in too small window, then we have to play in an unsustainable manner for the health of the players, because we cannot reduce more the competitions. The Olympics are only 6 games now. You play group to final, 6 games, Olympic champion. So these are the elements connected to load management, if you ask my opinion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pietro. We move to another host, this time the host of the OQT, Puerto Rico. We have Fernando Ribas will ask his question. Fernando, good morning. Can you hear us? Please unmute and open your camera.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. You hear me?
Absolutely, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. Talking about the Puerto Rico Federation said on last World Cup about the possibility of doing World Cup 2031 in the Caribbean as a joint venture with other Caribbean federations. What's the FIBA position on the possibility of having a World Cup like that? What are the pros and cons? And if that happens, competition or other proposals?
Well, thank you. I have to say that if it's not the first, it's the second time I hear this in the last days, and I don't have any more information than that. I think our federation in Puerto Rico has been extremely busy over the last 20 days, preparing first the bid for the OQT, and then delivering a fantastic 3x3 America, I can say, in a like fantastic location in San Juan. And I had plenty of reasons to congratulate my colleague President Ramos, and also our executive committee member Mr. Carrion, for these latest organizational successes. This has not been raised with me. We will start, we believe, towards the end of next year, if I can give an indication, to prepare for 31 bidding procedures. And that is the the period where we will start also discussing with potential parties. We've been to Puerto Rico in '74, and I think we mentioned during the OQT draw that we're returning for the OQT on the 50-year anniversary of the '74 World Cup. And at that time, Puerto Rico did it alone, a much smaller, of course, World Cup. One can see a number of interesting aspects in having a traditional basketball country in the Caribbean, and whether it is in collaboration with other federations or not. You know how it works. We need minimum 4 big venues, and that is a starting point for us in most of the discussions with interested parties. And if Puerto Rico wants to raise their hand, we'll definitely have this discussion, and their track record of competitions is such that we know that if they mean it and they have guarantees, support from the government like they had now, we should thank them. They can deliver. So open to have this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. That concludes the press conference for today. Thanks a lot to everyone. Andreas, maybe a few words to end.
I really look forward to seeing you all in one of the OQTs in February for women, or in April and May for 3x3, or in July for men's basketball, and then certainly I think those who come to Lille will show their loyalty to our sports, and I think there we will see fantastic Olympic tournaments, and I would say once again an exhibition of the power of our sport in both its disciplines, basketball and 3x3. So not a long speech, to thank you above all for your availability and for your very interesting questions, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas, and of course, thank you to all of you for participating. Don't hesitate to send us some feedback. Of course, we'd like to improve this traditional press conference every year. Thanks to my colleague also, who has prepared this press conference, and hopefully we're able to make you happy with all those questions and answers. Happy holidays to everyone. Many opportunities to see each other around the courts in 24. All the best, and Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.